Alondria, thank you for joining us today for our, I think it's our fourth podcast now. So
Oh, nice. Well, thank you for having me.
yes, we're pleased to have you on here as a recent graduate. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your career path that you're on?
So I I graduated from Westminster technically in the summer of 2020. I was able to walk last May, but didn't finish up my credits until now. So the career path I want to go on, I want to become a traveling pediatric nurse. I'm not enrolled in nursing school yet. The hope is that I will be by the fall of 2021, hopefully. But currently, I found a position at a medical center back home as a patient care technician, which is essentially the new term for a certified nursing assistant. Um, and I think it's definitely going to help me when it comes to nursing school. I think I'll be just a few steps ahead when it comes to like clinicals and whatnot, with being able to portray skills and um, just think little tricks that I've learned as a tech and things like that. Um, so that's kind of about it. I mean, associated with that, I have a couple part-time jobs, but that's majority of my time there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how did you hear about a traveling pediatric nurse? I had never heard that before I had met you when you were still a student at Westminster. Tell us more about how you've discovered that.
So I wanted to be a pediatric nurse since I know I wanted to be a pediatric nurse since about junior year of high school. But also, I just know that with paying for school, I traveling would be a little bit harder to come by considering I paid for school pretty much by myself. Um, so it's just a matter. I was like, well, I could make up for that by incorporating travel into my career, and that made it my dream career.
Yeah.
And of course, I want to do domestic the way I can actually, where I'm able to travel internationally. I want to be able to enjoy it and not really be working. Um, but just, I mean, I've been to a limited of like maybe 4 different states max, and there's still like literally a whole world within the US that I haven't explored yet. And it's just like, I could get that experience while also working. Also, I feel like I feel like I kind of have like a nomadic personality. Like I'm destined to live a nomadic lifestyle for a while. I can't stay in the same place for too long. I get bored. I get,
Yeah.
not unmotivated, but I kind of get off track. I was like, well, let me see what else is here. But
Yeah.
I knew that traveling nurses were a thing. I was just like, well, if I specialize and I could be a traveling pediatric nurse, if it's not already a thing, I'm going to make it a thing.
Gotcha. Well, you were talking about your parents and your family, and you said you were supporting yourself or paying for the majority of your college. What kind of support did you receive from your family and friends when you were considering attending college?
So, my friends are definitely all for it. They're like, girl, don't get your nursing degree. And I'm just like, well, that's not the kind of program one semester has, so I won't be doing that yet. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, family was all for it. I have other family members that aren't within my immediate family that have bachelor degrees, so they definitely helped me on like the scholarship front. So like when my older sister went to school back in 2010, my parents didn't know anything about FAFSA, loans, scholars, like not much about it. So of course, unfortunately, they kind of maxed themselves out with her, and they were like, I mean, they just told me straight up, they was like, hey, if you want to go to school, you're gonna have to make sure you can pay for it yourself. Initially, I didn't know where I was going to go. I actually only applied to 3 schools. I got accepted into 2. One of them wasn't offering any money, and one kept claiming they never got my information. But it's
Oh
fine.
no.
And actually, I filled out a scholarship one night. It was sent to me by my my rep, who's no longer at Westminster. He was like, hey, here's a minority scholarship for you to fill out. It doesn't take much time. Just writing a little essay about yourself. And I was just like, an essay? And then it's like talking about me. And I was like, I don't know if I remember anything about myself now. But that I was very fortunate to be awarded that. And it pretty much covered half my tuition for the entire time I was at Westminster. So the other
Wow.
part was applying for other scholarships, applying for loans and things like that, along with working. So I mean, definitely had to work for it.
Yeah, you had to boogie before you even came here, like filling out a bunch of paperwork and goodness.
But I
Yeah,
did
that's a
it.
lot.
Alondria, what made you choose Westminster?
So I was in a program in high school it lasted from sophomore year until graduating from college. It's called College Bound. When my College Bound coach senior year told me about this little college in the middle of nowhere who has great connections for their majors and professions in other locations in other schools. And so actually I misunderstood that when I first heard it. I thought they said Westminster had a nursing program, not that Westminster has connections to a great nursing program. But I was just like, well, connections are good, networking and just visiting, different places, different ideas, different schools, especially considering these schools come to visit us. I thought it was just an amazing thing. I was like, well, that would be a good way to get my foot in the door, just being like, hey, I went to Westminster, and they're like, oh my goodness.
When we met when you were on campus, I know you were pretty well involved in a lot of stuff on campus. Can you tell us more about the organizations and clubs and everything you were involved in?
Yeah, so the two major organizations I was involved in, and they actually coincided with each other, was Alpha Gamma Delta, the sorority on campus, and then CAB. I was fortunate to be accepted as a social co-chair for CAB, which was mostly a good time. Not gonna lie. I had intermittent experience and participation with the Black Student Union. I feel like that's where I spent like most of my time. CAB was just a completely different experience. I think it definitely put a perspective for me, like how well budgeting can actually work. Considering we had, a set budget for each chair, and then we had to put on so many events. Just being able to move money around, like, oh, we didn't spend that much for this event, so we can spend more on this event.
Gotcha.
I enjoyed the work behind putting on the events. It kept me busy, but it was also just something I had never experienced before. So I think that definitely helped aid in me wanting to do better financially for myself. It's like, oh, well, I didn't spend that much this month, so if I wanted to, I spend a little bit more this month, on luxuries or deodorant or something. I don't know.
Yeah. We want you to wear deodorant.
Well, degree is not cheap, okay?
Yeah, CAB is still going strong on campus. They've had some really neat stuff this semester with food trucks, just really neat, fun stuff with COVID. But anyway, yeah, we all love CAB at Westminster. Yeah, go ahead, Mandy.
So Alondria, so you mentioned that you were part of the Black Student Union. Can you speak just a little bit about that experience and just what was it like for you on campus regarding diversity?
So to be completely honest, I wasn't really much involved with BSU until my senior year was when I was actually able to attend some meetings semi-regularly. Before that, it wasn't an organization that I deemed that I wanted to be a part of just simply because of the leadership. I was just like, that's not really something I want to be associated with, because then it's just like, I feel like the leadership that was there before was creating a divide. And that's
the leadership in the BSU?
Yeah, like my freshman year, I feel like it was creating a further divide on campus. And I was just like, well, I don't really want to be a part of that. I kind of want to, talk to everybody and see what everyone's doing, I don't want it to be like, oh, well, she's in BSU, she won't talk to us, or, this is how they feel about us. Like, that's not what I'm about personally. So I wouldn't join an organization that was portraying that. I think it was like BSA at the time, or BSO, something like that. But then it was transformed into BSU, and I was like, oh, okay. I attended the different events and everything, but I still didn't go forth the time to actually be active. So when it comes senior year, when I did become more active, it was just more of like a general membership. It was just, attending meetings and putting forth ideas, participating in things, volunteering my time. I had the time. So
what do you think changed, like for you, what changed in the organization to allow yourself the comfortability, is that even a word? The feeling of being comfortable enough to join, given your initial reaction to the organization?
Quite frankly, it was primarily the leadership, because people they won't look at individual members. They will look at how the organization is carried as a whole, and unfortunately base like their members off of that. And like I said before, I didn't want to be associated with an organization that's supposed to bring people, that's supposed to be uniting people, bringing people together, and it's creating a divide. I was like, that kind of defeats the purpose. I was just like, that's just not for me. It wasn't until I saw the significant change in leadership, and then I was like, wow, this is an organization I can definitely, I'm definitely wanting to be a part of now. Like, I don't feel obligated to be a member of BSU, considering I'm a Black woman on campus. Like, I didn't feel that way at all. It was a matter of wanting to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So what do you feel like there, I won't play to edit this part, so I'm saying that out loud. I couldn't, my words weren't coming to me. So with your experience on campus and your feelings of, the Black Student Union, you didn't feel the need or the requirement maybe to join it just because you were a Black female on campus. What was diversity like through your 4 years at Westminster? Did you see any discrepancies? Do you feel like Westminster did good things on campus regarding talking about diversity, or what improvements do you think could be made regarding just the topic of diversity on campus?
So I feel like when people hear the word diversity, their mind automatically goes to racial diversity. Because I know mine does. And the biggest portrayal of racial diversity I saw on campus was indeed my freshman year. Our freshman class was well endowed with people from different cultures. But then it came second semester of our freshman year, a lot of those students, I guess, weren't able to afford it, or they chose other places and they left. And so essentially the students I came in with my freshman year were that was the most diverse group, or the most, I guess, racially different. I don't know, Clay, you can definitely edit that out if you choose. That was definitely the biggest difference in skin color I saw, was primarily those students, because following that, I feel like there were only maybe 2 or 3, only 2 or 3 like Black people that came to campus, whether they were African American or not, that came to campus to stay those remaining few years. However, though there wasn't much physical racial diversity, there is still a bit of cultural diversity, because you may have the various students who were born and raised, the African students, but still their cultures are different. They're not all from Africa is a diverse place. Africa has different parts of it, just like in America. We have just by skipping a couple towns, your culture is completely different.
Yeah.
And one thing I wish that Westminster would have spent a little bit of time on, especially with the diversity dialogues and stuff, is religious diversity, like diversity in religion,
Yeah.
because I feel like in order to learn about the various religions that may have resided on campus, you shouldn't have to take Dr. King's class for that, because you may not want to have a semester course. You may just want to stop in, have a slice of pizza, and learn about it. You
Yeah.
know, like I don't want to be tested over something I'm interested in learning about, but I'm not willing to take a class for. You know, I feel like there's just so much negative, I don't want to say connotation, but negative thoughts and energy when it comes to speaking on religion sometimes. And I really wish that we've done different panels before, and I wish that we would have done like a panel on religion, because I know we had like a self-proclaimed Buddhist on campus.
We have Muslims on campus.
Yes, we have Christians, we have atheists, we have Wiccans, we have, there was so much there, and it wasn't explored at all. And I feel like that was just a shortcoming, considering how richly diverse the religions were on campus.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good point, because I think the majority of people just focus on what you see, right? And the one thing we see is skin color. We don't see religion. No one has anything stamped on their face saying what religion they're part of, unless they have some kind of
Jewelry or
religious, jewelry or clothing or something
tattoo.
that's very identifiable. So I think people really tend to focus on just the easiest category to grab onto, and for most people that's race, because we can categorize and we can talk about that. But there's you said, there's so many levels of diversity that we could do all kinds of programming on campus and probably touch every part of the campus community.
I think so, but unfortunately, just with primarily being the diversity factor that Westminster promoted, it seemed to be racial diversity. Even after there was diversity decline, they still promoted that as if it were still true. And I didn't like that. I feel like they were exploiting their few students of color on campus in order to bring more people to campus. And I feel like that wasn't the best way to go about it. Because literally it's just the few I really don't know how to word this. I don't want to say non-white faces on campus, but I feel like that's the best way I can put it. Were capitalized upon and saw little to no benefit from that.
I see.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's not fair. Because they want to come like, oh, well, all these, leaders on campus are people of color. And it's like, well, those are your only people of color. Like that's all there is. So, all they can do is really come to us, but they could have asked us how to better, how we feel we could be better. What's the word I'm looking for? Represented on campus, that isn't just about my experience as a Black person on campus.
I know last week or 2 weeks ago, we interviewed John Martin, who's an alum of Westminster, and his major was business communications, and he is now a member of our development team. And we also have Muley, who is, an international student. Did I pronounce it right? Randy's giving me the thumbs up. Muley, I think I butchered your name. I don't know how many times. But we're interviewing him in 2 weeks, and I really want to touch on that piece with him, is, how we recruit specifically to students of color, and just applauding them as well for having, a 25% increase in enrollment of freshmen this year. And I know when we spoke to John, about that, I know, I'm sure that his role in that was very large. I think we need even in our enrollment counselors to look diverse, because, we want to increase diversity on our campus, and we need to hear and see from you know, students and faculty and staff, you know, we need to see and hear those different perspectives.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, when I came to Westminster, all the people that I knew at Westminster, you know, coming here were indeed Black students, but I didn't realize they made up half the Black students on campus. You know, the few that I knew beforehand, and my admission rep, Taryn, who was amazing, who's no longer there, you know, was a Black man. I feel like that was an appealing factor. It's just like, oh, there's some, you know, representation there in administration. Okay. You know, that may have a little bit more to offer us, you know?
Yeah. If I mean, I know we've had students comment before, and I know I've asked this of my LST class that I'm teaching this fall is they've noticed that even at Westminster, it's less diverse here than it was in their high school. So how would you advise our white students, you know, how to interact or start conversations or dialogue with students of color? How do we, and we talked about this the last few podcasts, how do we start bridging those gaps and creating those conversations? What are your recommendations?
Definitely to ditch the stereotypes before approaching someone.
Yeah.
Don't approach them intending to start a conversation that will turn offensive quickly, considering the person they're speaking to, about things that they've heard or things that are portrayed in media about a certain community, because that essentially that may quickly lead to conversational shutdown, and then you may never, and then that just begins the divide that we can't really afford to have, that we shouldn't want to have. So I would say come to them willing to get to know the person you are speaking to. And I understand that prejudices and stereotypes, they're unfortunately they're ingrained in society and they're going to come out, but come with a sense of wanting to learn, not continue to press those stereotypes on a person. Because every person is their own, then that's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah, we tend to paint people with broad brushes, don't we? Unfortunately. I mean, people are not that way. We all have so many nuances and details about our personalities. I mean, all my friends are different in their own way, and that's why I love, you know, all of them individually in different ways. But yeah, I think in LST too, I know Kiva and Callie have both strived, especially this fall. We are teaching 2 diversity modules in LST for our incoming freshmen. And I love that. It really opens some dialogue in the classroom so we can create safe spaces. I know we had one earlier on in the semester to kind of introduce the topic, and we're having one next week, I believe. And they're hard topics, and especially when you're 18 years old, 17, 18 years old, you're still forming your opinions about stuff, but I think they have to be had. And I know we're going to have more to come, I'm sure of it.
And I think that's the only thing we can do collectively on campus, is just to make sure we include those conversations in, I think, all of the classes.
Yes.
It should be part of, I don't want to say it's part of the coursework, but it should definitely be part of the classroom discussions. Starting to incorporate that. Just like, you know, Michelle, we've talked about how career development really needs to be discussed in all of the classes. It shouldn't just be specific to certain courses that students could electively enroll in. It should definitely become part of.
It should be present everywhere, not just where it's designated to be.
Exactly, because in the places where it's designated, you're only going to get the people who are really involved and interested. You're not going to get the people who don't realize that they need to hear whatever the conversation is.
Yeah. And part of a competency that employers and companies are looking for is that global and intercultural fluency. And that's what they're telling us they want from college students when they graduate is technology has allowed us to have this global network of business. I mean, we're connecting through Zoom right now you've got email. There's technology is so evolving, and to connect with businesses and partners across the globe, we have to teach our students how to have conversations with people that don't look like us or sound like us or act like us or have the same traditions. Not everybody comes from the breadbasket, in the middle of Missouri or the middle of the United States. We have to be able to talk to people and collaborate with people in the business world, and when we get into our careers, we just have to have those conversations. Alondria, what were some of the biggest challenges you had to face to get where you are now?
I would have to say my biggest one would be learning how to study. In high school, I was able to get by with reading a page and getting like the synopsis of the story, being able to write a paper on it, turn it in because I had good grammar. I don't know if that was grammatically correct. I don't know if that was grammatically correct.
It's early. It's okay.
What'd you say?
It's early. It's okay.
It is.
There you go. I haven't even had my water yet. My mind is shutting down. Because I just retained those skills. It was easy for me to get by on little to no actual effort, which definitely bit me in the behind going and walking into Mike Amspoker's class on the very first day. I was like, oh crap, I'm in trouble.
Oh no.
I got through it, but it was rough. So definitely learning how to study. And I honestly, I feel like I didn't really know how I learned best how to study until really like the end of my junior year, beginning of my senior year. That's when I was able to better prepare myself, I feel. Like up until then, it was just trying other people's methods. And I was just like, well, this is not working for me. And that's the thing. It wasn't for me. It was how they, learned to be successful in their studying tactics and everything. Like some people, they can pull an all-nighter and be fine. Me, no. Bedtime is by midnight. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have the mentality, if I don't know it by midnight, then I don't know it.
Alondria, what did you find that ended up working for you?
So, unfortunately, my if I don't know it by midnight thing kind of went out the window when I learned that I am more productive at night.
Night owl.
So,
how did that come about? How did that come about?
I think probably the first time I pulled a full all-nighter, I was like, wow. Okay, like I was just going. But like during the day, I was just like, oh, here's another 5 words to my essay. 2 hours go by. Wow, I'm at a whole 25 out of 500 words. I'm doing great.
Do you think you have less distraction at night because people are asleep?
No, not at all. Because I can definitely be my own distraction.
Yeah.
I also like, I don't know if this is the correct term, but I stagger study. So I think this was actually a technique that Michelle and I talked about when I went to her met with her a few times. Like I would focus on this specific assignment for 40 minutes. And then I would walk for 5 minutes and then actually do something enjoyable for about 15 minutes, then come back. Mm-hmm. And that really helped me. So I was like, I not lose focus, but I can't focus for an hour easily.
Yeah.
I'm just like, my mind starts wandering. I'm just like, oh, I wonder how it feels outside, or ooh, I wonder what they're doing, or ooh, just thinking about food or something. I don't know. It's just easily distracting after about a good 40 minutes of actually focusing. Because then it's just like, because I'm not focusing, I'm not retaining anything. I'm just like, And like when I get to that portion, like say on the test where I kind of started zoning out with my notes, I'm probably going to start thinking about food again or whatever I was thinking about when I got to that part of my notes.
Yeah.
I always think about food. Isn't there a study? Oh, man, I can't remember, but there's been studies because there's a lot of articles and books that are out about how to even work productively. So basically the same thing, how to study productively, how to work productively. And there's studies that show, even the adult mind, we can only concentrate for so long before
Yeah.
we all start to wander. And we all have to take those, incremental breaks here and there. And I want to say the books that I've read really focus on like 20-minute or 30-minute chunks. So real
Yes.
short chunks of work, and then you do like a 5-minute break.
Mhm.
And break as in you get away from the computer or your books or whatever you're focusing on. You go do something else, and then you come back. So I think it's a very popular method to studying and to just general work.
I think
a
it's
method-
interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Alondria.
I think it's interesting that that's the way that it's recommended that it's literally a study on studying. That's how it is, but that's not how our learning is implemented. Like I understand that we only have like 15-minute classes 3 days a week and an hour 15, hour 30 twice a week, but it's just like if you don't expect me to sit in an area for longer than, let's say, 35 minutes before knowing that the brain, is kind of maxed out for that moment, and like then I'm taking it upon myself to take like a 5-minute break or a 2-minute, just hey, get up and stretch, kind of reboot yourself for the last 15 minutes of class or so.
Yeah.
This is like, why don't we learn like that? Because in high school our classes are a lot longer. And then most times, if you have to ask to take a little break, and essentially that's just running off to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then even then, like that request can be denied, which is actually kind of weird. But
Yeah. Hopefully our professors or all of our professors are listening, and knowing, after that 20-30 minute mark, your students are probably nodding off. They're probably tempted to look at their phone. They're, tapping their fingers. Their attention span is going, off a cliff. So hopefully they'll have like a brain break in the middle of the class, to help their students out. I came across something this summer called the 20-20-20 rule, where every 20 minutes for 20 seconds, you look 20 feet away. Say like Mandy and myself were behind a computer a lot of the time, your eye gets fatigued, and you have to look away. And I haven't done it as much, but when I learned about it, I practiced it, and it really does. It gives your eyes something else to focus on. So, every 20 minutes looking up, away from your computer for 20 seconds, and just really giving your eyes that optical distance. Because even that can affect your studying, or sitting down and reading a textbook, doing the same thing if you're studying, or writing a paper. You just have to have those breaks.
Yeah. So Alondria, kind of tied to the challenges that you face, learning how to study, what advice would you give your college age self if you were able to do so?
To definitely focus on mental health, because I feel like that definitely played a part. Like I was at my academic lowest when I was still recovering mentally from trauma, and I didn't realize that it had such an impact, not even on being social. Like I was forcing myself to be social so I wouldn't be alone, or my academic work. I would definitely just say focus on all of the entire aspect of mental health, not just when it's good or not just when it's about to be bad, but all of it. Like I feel like there's a stigma around going to see a counselor or speaking to a therapist when you're having issues, when in reality, I feel like it would be better if we started, if we just spoke to someone regularly. The way we aren't just building up and building up and building up until we explode into something unpleasant. We're already on top of it. It's just like, oh, well, this is bothering me. Let me talk to someone about it. That's not necessarily your friends.
Wouldn't that be such a great thing? Like, all the students are assigned an advisor, an academic advisor when you come in. as a freshman, and then you go to your advisor in your major once you've declared that major. But wouldn't it be great if everyone was assigned a counselor and you had those regular checkups, just like you do with your advisor, because you're supposed to meet with your advisor, at least once a semester. Supposed to.
I definitely think it does, because I mean we're supposed to check in with our doctor every year.
Yeah,
I think
it would help normalize.
We check in, with someone every so often for our mental well-being, because quite frankly, I mean, the brain runs everything. I mean, if you're not doing well there, it's likely that you're not going to do well everywhere else, because there's just functioning differently.
Yeah,
I
think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think it would help normalize the idea of counseling and therapy for the students who are apprehensive about even trying it, because it is a big deal for a lot of people to admit to needing to talk to somebody, or even admitting that, oh my gosh, I have a bigger problem than what I can handle, because most people don't want to admit to that.
But also oppositely of that, I feel like people think that they compare their problems to other people.
Yeah.
And they come to the conclusion that their problems don't matter, or they're
it's not as big as that
compared
person.
to someone else. But like, that's not the point. The point is that it's your problem, no matter how big or how small. It's your problem. It's something that you should be able to deal with, and however you think you need to deal with it, even if that means needing professional help about it. Because like when I unfortunately, my counselor, the person I utilize, she left my junior year, and I thought she was amazing, and she just really instilled me. She was like you cannot compare your issues to someone else, like the magnitude of them, like how heavy they are, because someone else can carry 20 tons of emotional baggage doesn't mean that you can carry the same amount. You may only be able to carry 2 ounces. Like that's not comparable.
Well, who knows if that person who's carrying the 20 pounds, they could be struggling just as much as you are, but they're just not going to admit to it.
Exactly.
It's people say it all the time. You don't know what other people are going through. They may look happy. They may look like they're all together. For myself as a mom, I like to, in my mind, when I think about that, I think about all the moms I see that have their perfect hair. The hair is perfect, and they've got their makeup and the lipstick, and they all put together, and I look like a mess with, yoga pants and a sweatshirt rolling out of my car. So I like to remind myself when I have those moments, looking at those moms who I think are perfect, and I'm quoting this. They may not have their stuff together. You know what I mean?
Right.
They've been yelling at their kids all day while they're trying to put their makeup on.
Yeah.
Right. Getting made up and looking nice to go get a jug of milk might be their way of coping and making themselves feel better. By getting some fresh air for 15 minutes. Like, oh, even though I'm going to get a jug of milk, I'm going to go look my best, because you look good, you feel good, right?
Yep.
Now, Alondria, I want to ask you this question because I meet with students who are struggling academically, but also career counseling and that kind of stuff. And I notice a difference definitely between my male and female students who are willing to admit they need to see a counselor or are going to a counselor if they tell me. Do you think there's a stigma among Black men and women to seek counseling? And if so, is there a difference between men and women?
I'm going to say yes
to
both of those. Simply because there's this stereotype surrounding the Black community. It's just like, oh, they're strong, they persevere, they can handle anything. And it's just like, no, like being Black does not mean that I don't have, mental downfalls, or I have, I don't struggle mentally with anything. That doesn't mean anything. That's kind of I feel like that's kind of a way to avoid helping or getting the help you need. But also, I feel like I hope that as we're working to destigmatize therapy and like counseling and whatnot, that I mean, we will move forward, that we will encourage others to continue through with, you know, like, oh, hey, like, I think you need to go talk to someone, you know, like just being that friend is like, hey, like, I'm observing you and I think there's something going on, you know, because sometimes, I mean, these are things going on that we don't know about until we start talking about it, you know, and I think that just the difference between femininity and masculinity is, I think it's just that, oh, men are supposed to keep quiet and go about their business and
Well, they're
not
supposed to be
talk about anything.
these strong men who can handle anything, right?
Exactly. And I feel like that's just as hurtful as saying, oh, well, women are just emotional. They'll talk about anything. Because, excuse me, you don't know me.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like that's unfair. And I feel that just the expectation that men can't speak on what is that's bothering them is just as unfair as blaming a woman's outburst on being hormonal or emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Andrea, I want to go back to the stereotype you mentioned among the Black community. Why do you think that stereotype exists, that the Black community are strong people and they don't need help with their problems?
To be honest, I mean, I think that just goes back to racial divide. Considering the Black community had to thrive off of nothing. They had to find a way to thrive amongst themselves. And it's kind of just like that. What happens in the community stays in the community. You're not supposed to seek help outside of that. You know, like, oh, suck it up and deal with it type deal. And I'm just like, that's not where we should be. We've come so far in other ways, and yet this is where we're lacking, you know?
Yeah.
This is where we're slacking.
Do you feel like a Black man or woman, if they admitted to themselves that they do need that counseling, do you think they would be more apt to seek a counselor of color versus a white counselor because of that?
I definitely think so. I mean, considering there's the thought there that they can relate more, that their counselor may be able to relate more to them if they have one physical aspect in common.
Do you all watch This Is Us?
No, but I've been told I should.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this conversation right here, and Michelle, your question was part of the 2-hour season premiere of This Is Us that happened on Tuesday night. I definitely recommend you both binging the seasons first to catch up. It's an emotional roller coaster. I think it's the best TV show on television, honestly.
I've heard that.
Episode for the listeners, maybe some of them have watched it. But one of the main characters his name is Randall. He's a Black man. He was adopted as a newborn into a white family. So he has 2 white siblings and then it's him. So these 3 children. And growing up, obviously I know this is fictional, but I'm sure many individuals can relate to his story. But growing up, he was the only Black person in his family, and they never talked about race. And so he had to deal with a lot of the racial issues that were going out in the world. He had to deal with it on his own as a child, and he's just internalized all of that growing up, and it's really affected who he's become and how he handles life as a Black person. But towards the end of the episode, he's been seeing a counselor for different reasons, and I won't spoil those for you. But at the end of the episode, he calls his counselor. In this episode, it's present day, so the coronavirus is happening, and Black Lives Matters has just begun in this episode. It's just starting to really build up with all the protests and marches and things. But at the end of the episode, he calls his white female therapist, and tells her, you know, I realized that I chose you specifically because I grew up in a white family.
Right,
And that's
yeah.
what he knew. And he realized, just with everything in the world that has happened, he realized, whoa, like I need to address my specific issues, and I can't be honest with you, a white female, because you're not going to understand where I'm coming from, and I'm not going to open up to you like I really need to. And so he had this kind of aha moment, like, oh my gosh, I need to find a Black therapist to really help me address these deep rooted issues that I've been living with my entire life, just because of how he grew up and the lack of cultural diversity and the lack of that support from the Black community. So it was just this great moment for him as a character to have that realization, and then just to speak it, to be that honest with his counselor. It was such an awesome moment. But this conversation right here just brought me back to that episode. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, and it makes me think of, you know, Black males that I work with in my office, and you know, hopefully I'm creating a safe space for them. But again, you know, I don't look like them. We're not the same gender. We've talked about different role models in their lives, but you know, there's only so much that I can help with, you know, at the end of our session. And I have to say, I'm not a licensed professional counselor, but sometimes these sessions go where we are talking about outside distractions, how it affects academics and stuff. But so I can't counsel them ethically. I can't diagnose them or anything like that. So I want to put that out there publicly. But, you know, I refer them out if needed, if we have, you know, deeper conversations. But I really hope that, you know, people that are listening can really talk about or make some decisions towards, you know, some hiring decisions on campus, making sure we are diverse with our staff and our faculty and our wellness center and stuff. I think that's really critical to think about how our students feel supported on campus. Alondria, you were talking, you know, before we got on the subject of counseling about, you know, seeking counseling for yourself. I mean, now that you've graduated, how does work-life balance mean to you? How are you taking care of yourself now?
Essentially, I try to find enjoyment in everything I do. Essentially, if it doesn't bring me joy or prepare me for things that I can provide for myself with that, you know, will be enjoyable for me, I don't think it's worth my time. So I have a very demanding job, but I fully enjoy my job. I fully enjoy what I do. So I don't feel necessarily like I'm being like weighed down with a job. I feel like, oh, I'm doing something I enjoy. You know, like when I'm talking to my friends, I'm like, oh, like I'm going to another, so I work nights, I work the night shift. I work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So when I'm talking to my friends, like, oh, like, what do you have going on? I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm going to another paid sleepover. You know,
That's great.
I mean, there are just so many things going on, or so many things that can happen in a moment. It's just making the moment count. The moments count while you can.
Yeah.
You know.
Let me pause the recording right there because I noticed my laptop is low on battery, so we can take a deep breath and let me go grab my cord and I'll plug it in. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mandy.
So Alondria, you mentioned that you work nights 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. and it's 9:35 right now. So did you go to sleep, or are you just off of your 12-hour shift?
So actually, I did get some sleep. I actually worked one of my part-time jobs yesterday, so I had more time to sleep. I didn't work overnight.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
Good.
I would be really impressed with you holding a conversation after a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
I've had to do it. It's hard. I mean, there are times I
You
don't
got
go
to
to
do
sleep
what you got to do.
yeah, like there's some days like during the day, like that day I don't go back into work. Like I'm up until like noon.
I bet it's hard for people who work nights, I bet it's hard to adjust because as you are winding down and needing to go to sleep to get your rest, the whole world is waking up to start their day. And you know, I've always wondered, how do you, this is not on topic at all, but how do you, you know, when do you make your doctor's appointments? Do you just stay up and make your appointment and then you go to work tired, or do you wait for a day off? Or how do you function? Like, when do you run your errands? Because other people may run their errands at lunch break. And if your lunch break is at, you know, 2 a.m. or something, what's going to be open at 2 a.m.?
The ED, that's it.
How does that work? So my question for you right now is like, how do you manage those day-to-day responsibilities when you work nights?
So let me just preface with I only work 3 nights a week at the hospital. So that means I still have 4 days out of the week to get stuff done when I work around my part-time schedules. So sometimes it may be easy for me to get something done, you know, wake up a little bit early and get it done, or do it before I go to sleep, depending on what it is. Because like there were a couple times I was speaking to my dietitian, we'd have like a conversation at like 8:30. I'm getting off, and I'm just like, "What'd you say?" You know. And there's other times I was like, "Wow, that really could have waited. I could have done that 3 p.m. on Thursday when I don't have anything going on." You know. Sometimes we just like to include I like to include things when I'm scheduled to work. The way when I'm off, I'm off. I don't have to worry about anything, but that's just not always the case. Sometimes, I mean, I don't go grocery shopping until 8 p.m. You know, when I wake up, and I'm just like, my sister's just like, "Why are you going to the store at 9 o'clock, at 8 o'clock?" I'm just like, "Well, I just woke up."
That would be a good thing because it's less crowded, I would think.
Yes, but then I cook late, I eat late. And then also if I cook late, I eat late, I may not be cooking or eating the best things, or, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I never really thought about it like pre-planning it like that. I just kind of go with the availability of others, considering that, you know, everyone's still trying to find that balance between what can be a conference call and what needs to be seen in person, you know?
Yeah. So what can I ask what hospital you work for?
Yeah, so I work for Missouri Baptist Medical Center in Town and Country. It's a couple towns over from me.
Yeah. So how did you find that job?
So there is a friend of a friend that I know that has the same position. Huh?
Networking?
There you go.
We really try and push that.
That I actually know that we've been in touch with each other through like Snapchat. And I noticed that she worked there, and she put out there a little bit before I graduated. She was like, "Oh, like my job's hiring, you know, let me know if you have any questions." And I was like, "Oh, are they looking for part-time work or full-time work?" They're like, "Well, they're looking for full-time employees." This is when I still had like a semester to go. So I was like, "Dang, okay, I won't be the best fit." And then like right before I left, she put it out again. I was just like, "What? Another opportunity has presented itself to me to do something similar to what I want to do in life."
That's
awesome. So yeah, that's kind of how that came up. Just keeping up with people on Snapchat pays off sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we really stress to students the importance of networking, and you know, networking is such a scary word for a lot of people. Michelle and I don't really enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
We try to tell people that they need to do it.
Yeah.
So I like to talk to students about how you're really just having a conversation with someone. You're asking them questions about the company that they work for and what kinds of jobs are there and how do people get hired? You know, what's the company looking for in employees? And just staying on top of it, staying on top of the relationship that you've created. So just like you're staying on top of that relationship, even through Snapchat, such an informal platform. But that just means you can connect with even work-related professionals through all kinds of platforms. It doesn't have to be LinkedIn, you know, formal and that professional network. It can be Snapchat or Instagram or just email. But how are they as a company to work for?
So they're part of a bigger company called BJC, which is, they have multiple locations throughout the St. Louis area, and a couple in other places. And overall, they're okay. I think they're just, with everything that's going on, they're doing the best that they can. So I definitely came in at an odd time. It's like, even though overall I enjoy the work, sometimes the conditions are less favorable, but it's not in their control. I mean, they're just doing the best they can for the most part. Like for us, like BJC House Light just increased their minimum wage. I was like, awesome, cool beans, because I kind of need more money, you know, for breaking my back, you know. But it's fine. I mean, of course, there's always room for improvement, but overall, I'm pleased with my experience.
Yeah. What kind of diversity does the hospital have? Are you aware of like what kind? You look scared. Clay, cut this. You look scared. I'm trying to get into the how do you advocate for yourself at work without just directly asking you. I want to try and get into that piece.
I mean, some questions just can't be tied in. So I mean, if you have to ask directly, just ask directly.
Yeah.
There's no need to be like, well, how can I work this in? Because I mean, it may never present itself to be worked in, you know. But to answer your original question, so the physical diversity at Missouri Baptist is glaringly clear. I was not expecting to see that when I went there, considering where it's located. I was not expecting that at all. And then you can easily see some of the religious diversities based on dress, like integrating cultural, religious aspects within their uniform, and being, I'm not gonna say them being allowed to do that, but them being encouraged to maintain that part of themselves at work.
Wow.
That's so awesome to hear. So I'm not really familiar with Town and Country, and I'm not sure, for our listeners, that's kind of is it considered a suburb of St. Louis? It's a, there's so many towns around St. Louis.
Yeah.
Are they really suburbs? But what kind of city is that? Is it predominantly white? Are there a lot of cultural diversity there?
I think so. Actually, I can't say for sure. But I do want to say that it's predominantly white. I could definitely be wrong though. Like most of my patients are white. Like just with the floor I work on, most of my nurses are white. But there's a lot of representation in other departments. So yeah, I think it's just kind of like I'm gonna say like a hot zone for like crossing paths with people from various communities, but I kind of think it is. I kind of think that it is.
Okay, so as a Black female new employee with the hospital, and you see the cultural diversity and the religious diversity represented in staff on site, do you feel like it's easy to advocate for yourself at work given the diversity that's there, or have you found the need to have to advocate for yourself at work?
So I think me advocating for myself, self-advocation doesn't have anything to do with what I look like. I think it has everything to do with how I will demand I be treated. And I think just two instances that come into play, or two examples, is the pronunciation of my name and then the way people speak to me. Because I have not a multitude. So I've had a few patients who are like, I'm like, oh, I go to the interest. I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Alondria. I'm your tech for the night. Have any questions? Feel free to ask. And they're like, what's your name? I'm like, oh, it's Alondria. And I slow it down so they can hear it phonetically. They're like, they automatically dismiss it. And they're just like, oh, I'll never remember that. Do you have a nickname? No, because my name is Alondria.
Yeah.
And you, oh, can I give you? No, you do not have the authority, or I'm surprised you have the audacity to try
Yeah.
to rename me. And that's just not going to fly.
Yeah.
You're
So
not going to try to
handle
rename me.
that? How do you handle that in the moment? Do you try to be pleasant with them and, smile, or you're just like, matter of fact, no, my name is Alondria. You can call me Alondria. We're done
It's
here.
mostly matter of fact, because I feel like if I try to be pleasant in the sense that I'm kind of joking, it seems like I'm joking about it, then they won't take me seriously.
Yeah.
And my name is my identity, and I'm serious. I'm here, I'm real, I am who I am, and you will not dismiss me as something else because you won't take the time to try to pronounce my name, which is spelled as it sounds. That is something that I will not tolerate.
Gotcha.
The other sense of self-application really comes into play when, like I said, the way I'm spoken to, because I don't tolerate just being spoken to any kind of way, and I feel that that's expected because of what I do. And I had an incident about a month ago from a patient who he was a white male, older white male, who made it very clear that he had connections with higher ups at MOBAB, and I did not care. He was very upset because he hadn't had pain medication yet. So I work on a surgical floor, on an orthopedic floor at that. So I help patients begin their first steps to recovery, rehabilitation. And he was just very upset. He hadn't seen his nurse yet. He had his pain medicine, and it just so happens that the nurse was next door with a patient where English was not their primary language. So there was a language barrier that was, I'm not gonna say was slowing her down, but it was keeping her. It needed her attention much longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to explain that to him, and he did not care. He started going on a tangent. He wasn't trying to listen to me. He wasn't trying to hear me. He starts trying to intimidate me, starts essentially trying to threaten my job. And I was like, okay, you're crossing the line. I was like, I'm just telling him, he's like, I'm going to call the president of MOBAB, and he's going to call your nurse and tell you to give me my payments right now. And I'm just like, okay, you can do that, but if you call the president of MOBAB at 9 p.m., I don't think he's going to be very concerned about you getting your payments. I think he's going to be more concerned with why you are disturbing him at home, which I understand. I completely understand. It's just, well, actually, no, I don't understand, because I understand that you're in pain, but I don't understand how that brings you to be nasty.
Yeah.
Because you can be in pain and you can also be understanding of what I'm saying to you. But I feel like that's just reflective of people.
Yeah.
They're using that circumstance to, benefit them in the best way possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the end, then the nurse finally comes to him. He is apologizing profusely. Like, I didn't go in his room at all, because I was just not pleased with this patient. And I was just like, I feel like if I go in there too soon, it's going to show. And that's not fair. So like a few minutes after the nurse leaves, I guess call lights going off, and I go in and answer it, and I go in, fix the problem, and I'm about to walk out. He begins apologizing profusely to me. He's saying he's not usually that way. He's just in so much pain. He was like, I acknowledge that that's not an excuse to act the way I did. And I literally said, okay. He's like, I understand if you don't accept my apology. I understand if you don't forgive me and this and that. I said, honestly, your behavior was inexcusable. I was like, I understand that you are in pain, but you are not our only patient. And unfortunately, that caused that you need to be a little bit more patient in getting the care you receive, because we're going to give you the best care that we can. But you have to wait your turn. I was like, you I said these things to him, and I'm just like, you essentially threatening my job was not acceptable. And no, I'm not going to say that's okay, because it's not. But I will say okay, and in acknowledging that I hear that you're apologizing, that you understand where you went wrong. But I'm not saying I didn't accept it, but I didn't make it okay. I made it clear that was unacceptable behavior.
Yeah.
And I feel that sometimes in healthcare, excuse me, we can be enablers for unacceptable behavior, because it's like, oh, that's okay. No, it's not.
Yeah.
You don't get to speak down to me because I'm not a nurse, because I'm not a doctor. You don't get to speak down to me because essentially I'm a nurse's assistant and you're my nurse. Like, that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
Because we are still in a professional setting, and I will professionally set you straight.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to walk over me or belittle me or be condescending to me because we're not the same. Like, we're not the same title.
Yeah.
And that's what's not going to happen.
And that could have been some ageism. I mean, we talk about racism, ableism, and that could have been, that isn't a perfect example of ageism, where we, discriminate against others who are different age than us. Maybe he was looking down at you because of, assuming or even seeing, that you're a much younger person than he was, and maybe for whatever reason, he just felt, he needed to condescend to you, which is unfortunate, but it sounds like you handled yourself very well and very professionally. So congratulations for handling it that way.
Thank you. I mean, I try. I mean, sometimes it's just finding the best way to, because staying silent isn't going to do anything, because then I'm just going to be upset, or I'm going to be irritated. It'll show. And the other people that I interact with don't deserve that because they didn't do anything to me. That's just, sorry, that's just something I'm working on personally, all over, not just in the professional workplace,
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we're winding down the interview here. Is there anything else that we've missed that you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we'll go ahead and promote the word of the day. As our listeners already know, we have our guest speaker announce the word of the day. And if you guys email CareerServe that you've heard the word of the day, we'll enter you guys into a drawing for a $25 gift card given to you by Center for Faith and Service for one of your local favorite restaurants, or Amazon or Walmart gift card. So we hope you've enjoyed today's session. I know I've really enjoyed speaking with you, Alondria, and getting to hear what you've been up to since you've graduated. So what would you like your word to be?
I think I would like for it to be advocate. I feel like we let so many things slide before speaking up about something. Yeah. And that's something that I think that it's important. So we're going to go with advocate.
Yeah, I think it's a great theme for today's talk. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to move on to the rapid fire questions that we love so much here at the end. She's rubbing her hands. She's ready. So Alondria, what is your favorite word?
Wow. At this point, it's probably bunny. It's probably bunny.
Oh.
I have a bunny, and he's just like my favorite creature on earth right now. So.
Oh. What is your least favorite word?
Anything that resembles a slur.
Okay, gotcha. What sound or noise do you love?
When Mushu eats, like when he's eating like celery or something, like the crunching is so cute. I'm just like, oh.
I love hearing my daughter eat potato chips.
It's kind of like soothing.
It is. It is. What sound or noise do you hate?
When the dogs are barking and I just fell asleep.
Oh, yeah. Yes. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Probably acting.
And what profession would you not like to do?
Probably mortuary sciences. I would not
Ooh.
like to embalm anyone.
Oh, yes.
I don't think that would go over well for me.
No. Oh, I can imagine. Well, I think that wraps up our podcast for today. Thank you for agreeing to join us on this Friday morning. You know, we are so pleased that you were, you know, able to do this, and thank you for filling our time. I know I've learned a lot from our talk today, and I hope our listeners have learned as well. And we'll just keep plugging away at diversity at Westminster. So thank you again, and we hope you
Of
have.
course, thank you.
All right,
Thank
you're
you,
welcome.
Alondria.
Bye.